Hey everyone, Matt Johnson here. This is my chat hanging out with Sinix. If you don't know him already, he is above and beyond one of the best art explainers I've ever encountered. Yeah, he is a teacher, but like beyond that, his ability to like explain concept things in simple ways, I've just never thought of the ways that he explains things, and it's incredibly helpful. He teaches some college courses. He's uploaded hundreds of demos and instructional videos to his YouTube channel. He's just an all-around generous and hardworking person, and I got to spend a minute with him at Lightbox, and I moderated a panel about YouTube. He was awesome on that, and we had breakfast the next day, and he just gave me inspiration and advice, and on top of that, he was willing to talk with me in the infancy of my humble little YouTube channel. So did I mention he is self-taught? Yeah, so when you go see some of his videos, take that into consideration. And after our interview, but before going live with this, he uploaded a video where he did a self-portrait for Self-Portrait Day, which is November 1st. You'll see some video from that here. And Sinix, I hope you don't mind that I stole some of your video content from your channel for this video. I knew from watching his videos for a while that he struggles with anxiety. And in that video, he goes into some real detail about it, and most importantly, how he manages it. And it's just so inspiring to see, no matter what you think like your limitations are, whether it's mental health or being busy or stressed by work, like if he can do everything that he's done, I feel like you can manage your channel challenges as well. Like it's really worth giving it a watch. He's a shining example of what you can overcome. And in this talk, we just kind of hang out and goof off for a little while, and talk about being no one from nowhere and making art in the 90s and being inspired by others when we were kids. And we get a little taste of some of his ideas about design and design thinking. Obviously, there's a ton of that on his channel. But if you're out there thinking there's something like holding you back, I encourage you to go watch that recent video that he uploaded. It was really inspiring to me. It made me feel like a big baby when it comes to my personal challenges, and just motivated me to keep going and keep painting and keep learning. So anyway, without further ado, here's Sinix. So what did you think of Lightbox?
Oh, well, I had a great time in Lightbox. Lightbox was like, I think the best event that I've ever been a part of, so, or got to go to, I guess I should say. Yeah, there's not that many things that get together that sheer amount of like entertainment industry people. So it was really exciting. I met just hundreds of people I'd never met before, so, and a lot of heroes of mine, so it's pretty exciting.
You know, it's funny you say that. That's how I described the event. It was like I could meet someone like you who would be a hero of mine, and then watch you meet someone who you were always looking up to. It was crazy.
Yeah. There were, I don't know. Yeah, there were so many moments where I was just kind of like pinch me moments, because they feel like surreal. You're like, hey, I'm like having breakfast with, and there's Craig Mullins and all these people. It's so weird. Yeah, it's, I don't know, it's such an exciting. I love the creative world. It's just so, I don't know, so much fun.
Who did you get to meet that you were really excited about?
Sparth, that was a big one for me. Really inspirational digital painter that I've like, really the reason I got into digital painting. Like I had gotten into art, but I didn't get into digital painting until I saw his stuff. It's like, ooh, okay, now I need to learn this digital painting thing. And it's just a lot of those like old conceptart.org type people from back in like early 2000s.
See, that's something interesting, because like I remember being like hanging out with my friends looking at conceptart.org, and we were all trying to do like the character of the week or the creature of the week or the environment of the week. Like, is that like one of your first like entries into the wider world of art? Or
that form as a whole, yeah, that was my like entry point into the art world for sure. Before that, like I'd like mostly dabbling, and I'd post stuff on DeviantArt, but I wasn't really like serious about it until I found that form, and then like saw what the potential was of that world. It's one of those industries that like even to this day, like most people don't really know what it is, or they just kind of don't, think about how the meat is made or where like these visuals come from. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, I guess someone does have to think of these things I see on my movies. I still feel like even if I describe it in such a simple way, people are still like, oh, so what do you do?
So, when you started working on different types of uh, like digital art, I guess, was there a draw for you to uh, people or mechanical things or teaching? What do you feel like was like the gravity that got you into it?
Originally, it's that, well, I mean, starting out, it's fun to just try to draw characters because I think everyone kind of comes from a place where they have some maybe story ideas in their own head and they're like, I want to develop my own IP or my own comic or something like that. So that's where I was coming from, like this point of, oh, it'd be really fun to make my own movie idea or my own comic. And I kind of got into it with that, but very quickly it turned into just, oh, I just want to get good at this thing and understand how to make pretty looking images and designs, and that became the only thing I cared about was just the craft of it and not so much doing my own things anymore.
Like, I feel like a lot of teaching these days is like a broad overview of how to do something. And like, I was watching your video on eyes, and you were like, you're not like, I'm going to do one eye. You're like, I'm going to do 8 eyes. And I'm going to have this one over here be a different ethnicity. And this one's going to have like windows reflected in the eye. And like, you just seem to be like a teacher with a capital T, you know?
Well, I appreciate that. I definitely approach every topic I talk about with like a genuine enthusiasm where like I'm excited to like make discoveries and kind of learn about it while I'm doing the video, and just have my own observations. And yeah, like when I'm doing the eye thing, it's like once I start, my brain's racing and I'm like, well, I did this one eye, but like how would I do this other scenario or this other thing? Like I can't just like not talk about that or leave that untalked about. So got to
Well,
get in there and make like a bunch of different eyes and talk about anything that comes to mind.
it seems like you challenge yourself while you're teaching.
For sure. Yeah. That's what keeps it fun. The puzzle solving of it all. Otherwise, I don't, I feel like there's a lot of teachers, not to badmouth them because it's fine, but that'll just kind of stick to a kind of set curriculum lesson plan and just kind of keep almost like regurgitate it, which is fine if it works for people and everything. But that for the students, that's great. For the teacher themselves, I'm like, I can't just keep pushing forward just these simple kind of structural facts. I like need to keep challenging myself, otherwise I'm gonna get bored. So it's mostly for myself.
All right, that's fair. Yeah. So, do you like, like, as you know, I just started my YouTube channel, and
Yes.
I started, I just started with like a painting demo. I was like, I'm just gonna start a painting from beginning to end. I'm gonna see where it goes, and I'm just gonna, record it and make some content based on that. And I started having these ideas about like, oh, okay, I can talk about this for the first quarter. I can talk, and there wasn't like a lesson plan, and there wasn't like steps that I was going to go through. So my question to you is like, how, like, do you come up with these ideas, or do you start kind of painting and then like, oh man, now I have an idea for a video? How does that work for you?
Well, first of all, yeah, I'm happy you started your channel and everything. I was excited. I was watching your videos the other day and
Man,
checking everything.
I feel like I still haven't made them entertaining enough. I don't know what it is. I feel like when I watch them back, I roll my eyes and I'm like, why am I doing
Yeah.
this?
Well, I mean, I feel like you're on the right track, but I think the approach is like the right one where you're just like, it's good to start with something, like just having a painting sped up, then talking about it. And then, like you said, kind of figuring out what you like talking about, about it, and kind of developing from there, like being like, what I like talking about when I make this painting, like this specific thing. And then you kind of you're constantly shifting your goals and what your content is to like whatever makes you the most excited and happy. Because I just personally, I just will try anything. I'm not like have a set place I want to get to, and then I'm like, I need to keep making videos in that direction. If I decide like tomorrow that I want to make videos that are completely different and they're all going to focus on a different aspect of art, like I'll just kind of go with. I think it's important to just kind of chase whatever direction seems the most fulfilling at the time. But yeah, I'm curious. What's your big goal for your art YouTube channel? I just want to hear some thoughts about it.
Oh, okay. Reversing this on me a little bit. Yeah, I think that for me, like I first started it like, okay, I might have something to share with people. And it doesn't take long for you to realize everything that anybody wants to learn about art is already on your channel or Proco or someone like that. Like the education aspect of it kind of went away quickly, and it became, okay, well, this is just a little bit more of a self exploration situation. And like you said, like I bring my own little thing to it. And what I think I started to bring to it was like my psychological point of view a little bit. Like when I realize I make mistakes, or when I realize I'm being a little bit like timid about something, like here's where I can say like, oh, okay, here's where I went wrong. Here's where I held back a little bit. I'm not trying to overproduce.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. It sounds like you're starting to piece together the things about it that you think would kind of benefit the most in your channel and everything.
Yeah,
Good.
like I did
Uh,
a video like 2 or 3 days ago where I was really inspired by your video where you did these little abstract doodles of robots, and then you like evolved that over the course of several robots, and I tried it, and so I was like, I'm not gonna remake the video that Sinix made. I'm gonna go on my own little journey, and I'm gonna try to do it. And I think that's a little bit of art content that is important for way amateur artists, like people who want to see what you do, and then they want to then go back down another level and see someone else try to do what you do. Does that make
yeah,
sense?
yeah, no, for sure. There's definitely an audience out there for, well, all kind of approaches and all levels and everything.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, like I said, well, I wouldn't be worried like about it at all, even at like such a early stage. Like even your channel in a year from now will probably be like all sorts of just wildly different content than it's like it starts out with. I expect that mine will be vastly different in a few years than it is now. So I think it's fun to just let them evolve and try to just not fight that, and or not try to conform to something that you think it should be, or that seems to work for other people, or whatever. You just kind of got to chase whatever seems interesting to you.
Well, and like I know it was just like one 45-minute conversation over breakfast, but like you really kind of gave me that kick in the pants when I met you. Was like, don't worry so much. Like just get out there and press the record button and start figuring it out. So I thank you for that.
I appreciate that. Yeah, no, it's a huge issue for people. They want things to be a little too grand and perfect at the start, so they usually just never start. But once you just kind of like put anything out there, it's such a great starting point, and then you can just be like, now I know where I want to go. It's like the old blank page syndrome. If you got nothing to look at on your screen, it's hard to be creative. You even just put like a blob on there, suddenly your mind starts racing. You can actually develop in all kinds of ways. That's the exciting part, is putting anything up there.
Oh yeah, like I took an abstract painting class a couple of weeks ago. Like it was actually my wife, like I mentioned earlier, she teaches, and like
Mhm.
I learned so much from just like putting paint on the canvas. Like, do you ever do anything like that? Do you do any random art classes that you wouldn't normally do?
I haven't done any random art classes, but that does sound fun. I do, unlike some artists that I run into, I actually really do enjoy kind of abstract art and like other aspects of art that might be more experimental and stuff. Because to me, it's exciting. I see a lot of value and potential in that kind of stuff. This kind of the more abstract side of why we're drawn to things and all of that stuff is it's exciting to me because to be honest, I should mention, like, I'm a I teach at a college. I teach design theory, and it's what's amazing to me is that I didn't go to any art school or take any classes. Not like I'm saying like, oh, it's because I'm, smarter at this stuff and just naturally get. No, the amazing part to me is that it shows how much basically room there is to for this field to develop and become more complex. If someone who's imagine like a doctor just like teaching in a school without just like being like self-taught or something. It's design as a concept is such an infant kind of stage, that I feel like there's just so much to really unpack and develop and kind of grow with. So I'm very excited just about everything about art and using any kind of weird abstract method or just looking at abstract art and trying to figure out how it's all going to come together. And eventually we'll have like very advanced concepts of design theory, maybe in 100 years or something. But I consider it to be just a baby in the cradle right now.
So there's two very interesting things you just mentioned. Number one, design theory in 100 years. Oh my God, I can't even imagine.
Yeah,
Um,
I love that stuff. Yeah.
yeah, that's a wild idea. And the idea of a self-taught doctor. I just think that's cool. Like, yeah, no, I didn't go to any schools. I'm just here to fix your leg.
Yeah. I tinkered around a little bit. I think I understand how things work.
Yeah,
That's
it's
like that's the only level that we really require of like these concepts these days. It's just like people are like, yeah, I think I got an idea how it works. Like that's where our design theory is at right now. You take any class, and I've sat in on the best design people's classes, and it's really at that level. It's just like this seems to kind of work. Like here's something that I think I tinkered with, and it seems to get results. And I'm like, yeah, this is great. It's fun. I like that it's at that level, but I'm like hyper curious about like how where the future of that is. Yeah, I think at the moment there's no way to teach people. I feel like there's no way to teach people to have good aesthetic choices in like a very concrete way. And so instead, we just rely on being like, well, this person's naturally pretty good at it, or this person seems like they have a knack for making aesthetic choices or something. And
yeah.
people just don't really develop it. Like, I think anyone can become that great, amazing designer. It's just we don't have the quite understanding there yet. But I think in 100 years, we'll be at that point where you can basically go to your art equivalent art school, whatever it may be, and go from like a nothing with nothing, no one that anyone would consider talented, and then being able to learn everything about design and be like the most stylish, aesthetic drawing person in the world.
Like maybe in 100 years, creating art is like AC repair. Like you can go to trade school for it. I'm like, yeah, I'm an artist now.
Could be.
No, I don't want to
There's
demystify it. I just I just think it's funny. Uh,
yeah.
yeah.
I
So
mean,
is
it is the one job that will probably be the most like kind of it's only been growing. I mean, I don't know if we're close to like it's basically its ultimate expansion in terms of how much entertainment design is soaked into everything we absorb every day. But the market of it is so huge compared to like 10 years ago, compared to 20 years ago. It's like almost exponential the number of artists out there that are curating everything you see.
Dude, I remember like I was a kid. I think I was like 8 or 9 years old, and I had played Link to the Past,
Hmm.
Zelda, and I remember telling my parents one day that I was going to work on the sequel to this video game,
Nice.
and this was like mid '90s, and I was just like, I want to make a sequel to this video game, and I tried to recruit like kids in my class to like help me brainstorm and things like that, and this wasn't a real job. like like I didn't know who was going to do it, but someone needed to do it. And I just can't believe that now it's like so tangible. Like you could tell an 8-year-old today, yeah, that's a real job. Uh, Here's kind of a roadmap, and you couldn't do that for us 20 years ago for sure.
Yeah, yeah, it's exciting. It's fun.
So
It's a fun time.
what you mentioned about 100 years from now, I really wanted to ask you about robots. I guess is it an actual fascination of yours, or is it just like these are easy to paint, or these are things I like to paint?
It's definitely it started as an actual like fascination of mine, and then I think it transformed into also being like, and here's why it's fun. Like trying to reverse engineer it the other way. Because when I was young, I loved like anything robot related. Like I used to be like the kid taking apart anything I could, just take apart any mechanical thing, just to see how it worked. But then also looking into like how I would make like a real robot or something, like getting into electrical engineering and stuff when I was like 13 years old, trying to solder together basic circuits and make little robots and things. I used to do all that kind of stuff. There's a just as a side, yeah, there's something called what was it called? Beam robotics, which I forget what that stood for, but it was basically an attempt at very primitive artificial intelligence. And when I say primitive, I mean like hyper primitive. So basically, imagine a robot, and its only purpose is it has like little motors that just act as legs. So it's just spinning a motor to move on the ground. But the only thing it does, it has a solar panel, and it has a photo sensor, so it detects where light is, and then based on the photosensor detecting light on the left or the right, the robot's like stores up enough charge in its solar panel and then moves a little bit in that direction. So basically, it's a robot that's self-sustaining, and its only purpose is to keep itself alive. And like it's basic, it's like the most primitive intelligence. It's like
That's like
it only wants to stay alive.
I think I remember that's like the basics of like how the eye evolved, like little
Yeah,
photosensors on organisms in liquid, and photosensors would like understand that like the light was up, like coming from the surface. And
yeah.
so yeah, that's kind of wild that that was like your first interest in robots, because you're so good at understanding everything about how the eye works.
I I loved all that robotic stuff and even just engineering, just mechanical stuff. Always fascinating. I think a lot of uh, just kids in general, they love, airplanes, all that kind of stuff, tanks, airplanes, cars, whatever. Um, and I carried a little bit of that forth. But then when I got into art, it was not so much like it started. I dabbled with them because yeah, it was like oh they were cool. They reminded me of being a kid and thinking they were cool. But then I realized that oh wait, they're also the one place that you can explore just pure design theory without any constraint. Because you can make a spaceship out of just shapes. That's it. You don't have to worry about any type of other conforming thing. It's not like humans where you have to add anatomy and all that stuff, and the things have to be structured in a certain way. You can just put together shapes in the purest graphic design sense of it together to make industrial design stuff. So that aspect of it, like being a purely design theory oriented kind of field, kind of prolonged my interest in it.
Yeah, that's I didn't really think about it like that. Like you don't have to follow any of the rules, and that's amazing. Because even now, like even when I try to paint a spaceship or a robot or whatever, I'm like, okay, well, how could this work in the real world? And like that doesn't matter. You're making art.
Yeah, well, especially for a spaceship, it doesn't matter. It could just be a circle. It could just be a block. Like it, you can kind of get away with anything. So the only thing you have to do is how can I make the most appealing or aesthetic circle? Like, and I love stuff like that. Just breaking down design theory into this most simplest thing.
And beyond design theory, like you're just so good at finishing an image as well. Like
I wouldn't say that.
Man, I don't know. Paint over repels, like it's an awesome skill, and like you're so constructive about it. Like nothing you ever say is like, this was a bad painting, and this is why you broke these rules. You're always just so constructive about it. It's awesome.
Well, yeah, I would feel bad about myself if I just had, there's something worse than like just having to say I don't like this or this doesn't look good and not yourself knowing why or like how to fix it, because that shows that like just a real lack of just even understanding yourself or understanding why things are good looking or why they're not. So if you can't, if all you can say about something is it's bad, it's kind of disappointing for yourself more so than it.
True. When did you start doing those?
I don't know. I guess it's been a few years.
Why did you start doing those?
It's a good test. I don't know.
I think it is. Like that sounds right.
A lot of issues that you kind of forget about, or that like you never had to realize how to improve at, like different little minor aspects of something, and then you see people do them, and you're like, what is the thing that is holding this back? Because it's very easy to be like looking at it and just being like, that could look better, but if you can like actually give a proper diagnosis, it's like a puzzle, Once again, coming back to puzzles, I like puzzles. I'm a puzzle solver.
I'm a puzzle fan, so you're good.
Yeah. So you give an artist an image and you say critique this, you're basically handing them a puzzle and saying solve this puzzle. Like what are the things that you can change in this? And I like that. Everyone kind of makes the same mistakes at the same points, and you got to kind of steer them in the right direction as a whole. For instance, like just since this is design theory, things like the ratios of like detailed density versus open space, a lot of people tend to just kind of spread the density of lines and shapes very consistently, just as like a natural kind of instinct, instead of kind of focusing on more pockets of like denser stuff and then big open shapes, bigger things. If someone's been doing art a lot, they tend to start getting, in the right direction. But a lot of people will make those same kind of struggles and mistakes.
One of the ones that I struggled with the most recently was the idea of exposure. Like, I wanted my paintings, like, I didn't realize it until, I think it was maybe Dai Satsumi and Robert Kondo's class on schoolism, where I was like, where they talked about exposure, like looking at a piece of art as not the way you would see the world, but the way that you would expose a photograph. And I realized that everything that I painted was HDR, like in the worst way, like not in a good way. Like everything that I was doing was like full exposure, full contrast. Everything was perfect. And man, yeah, that was something I had to struggle to get over.
But yeah, what's something that's interesting to me, there's a thing called automatic drawing, which Proko did a video on.
Oh yeah, I watched that video. Like I totally know exactly what you're talking about. Where
I
you
reference it all the time, but See, the thing is, in the video, like the guy that talks about it, he doesn't relate it back to like design theory much. Like to him, it's just a good exercise to kind of warm up.
It
And
was like a meditative thing.
yeah, but to me, I can diagnose. I make my students do it, and when I see them like the result, I can diagnose basically all the problems I know I'm going to see in their design work based
Wow.
on that, because it's I don't know, for some reason it's so good at doing that. Like if they're too stiff and too tight, you know, you can be like, oh, I know how your designs are gonna look. But even the thing about like big, medium, small, and like denser spaces and open spaces, like the way they just kind of scratch around on page, like will tell you everything you need to know. So you can diagnose all that stuff very easily and very early on.
See, that's why you're such a good surgeon. There's a lot of teachers that I've talked to, and like you've got a real skill for diagnosing problems and like figuring out where the issue is. It's awesome.
I'm obsessive. That's I've got an obsessive personality, and I like to figure things out. So it works well for teaching. Like I never knew what to do with it in the past because it doesn't necessarily work well for being in like studio settings or things like that. Because and being, you know, like holding up the process of being like, hold on, guys, let's re-look at this and keep changing it.
Hold on, guys. We need one more opinion. Can we get one more opinion in here?
Push that deadline back another week. I think we're on. But for teaching, it's great because I can just basically just do that.
How did you get away from freelance stuff? Like, I think a lot of people have issues with saying no to random things that their friends ask them to do and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, that can be a little. Eventually, people just stop asking you. No.
There's like a Darwinian aspect to it.
Yeah. So I don't like. Yeah, there were a few times in the past where I'd like say like, okay, fine, yeah, I guess I'll do it, and then I would immediately regret it, and I'd find myself being like, I really don't want to do it. And then eventually I learned like, okay, I'm just gonna avoid any of those situations. It's just to say no to everything, no matter what it is, even if it was the most amazing thing. And I don't know what the most amazing well, if Nintendo came over and said you want to work on a Link to the Past 2, I'd still say no, because I'm like, I know that's not for me. It's not like as amazing as it would be. And I agree that when I played that game, like the visuals of that game hold up so well, by the way. Like it's one of those games that like looks so good even by today's standards.
Yeah, I remember going to an electronics boutique, and it was like you could go. It was like the GameStop of the '90s, and they would sell like, except they didn't only sell game stuff. You could also get like a video card for your computer and stuff like that. So that was kind of cool. Yeah, I remember going in there and finding like books about the video games, and that was like the first time that I was like, oh my god, like seeing like art for Street Fighter, stuff like that.
Yeah,
like, oh my god, that stuff was so cool.
Yeah, I mean, I was always like subscribed to Nintendo Power and all that stuff, so that would be a little bit of exposure because they'd always have like some like behind the scenes kind of little articles or like the art stuff a little bit. That would always be a lot of fun.
I feel like there are some unsung heroes of concept art from that era that like
that's the pre-concept art, or like it was just the programmers just kind of drawing the stuff.
That's so crazy.
Like, they didn't have like teams; it would just be like one guy doing everything.
Hey, John, you're kind of an artist. Figure it out, right? I think that I have taken up enough of your time, and I appreciate you hanging out with me tonight. But what I do want to do is ask you if there's anything you want to share with anybody, anything you're excited about. Talk to us.
I want to promote creativity.
Hey!
I want to promote that everyone should go read more books. And I just finished reading Ball Lightning, just by the guy who made Three Body Problem. And I highly recommend all those books to people.
Whoa. What was it again?
Well, I read Ball Lightning, but if I had to recommend anything, I recommend people read Three Body Problem, which is a sci-fi book. It's a trilogy of books, and it's the best thing. You gotta read it. You gotta read it. We're trying to get everyone to read it.
Okay. All right.
My wife is so upset because she tried to get me to read it like 5 years ago, and I was like, I don't feel like reading it, and I was very like dismissive. And then I met Outdoor, was like, yo, I just read this book like this a few months ago. He's like, it's so amazing. I'm like, oh, cool, I'm gonna read it now. And my wife just gives me this like death eye. Like, wow, really?
It just took a mad getting on. Yeah.
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 Sorry.
That's funny.
But it's so good, and I like regret that I didn't read it years ago.
Have you
I
ever
regret. Go read the book.
Have you ever read anything by Max Berry?
No.
So this guy, he wrote a book called Jennifer Government that was kind of cool back in the day. I mean, this is like early 2000s, I think. But the premise was everyone in the future has taken new surnames based on their profession.
Isn't that where surnames came from?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's like he turned it on its head to say, like, what if we did it all over again? And so now you have like people named John Nike and Jennifer McDonald's. Not McDonald, but Jennifer McDonald's. Yeah, that's super good. So, but hey, I thank you for spending time with me tonight. I really appreciate it.
All right. See ya.
So there you have it. Just to recap, we were both doing our very best to learn art things in the world before the internet, and here we are today making stuff and sharing, and in my case getting to talk to people, experts and masters at things, people like Sinix that I could not talk to without the miracle of the internet. So thank you for watching. Please go watch some of his videos. Even if you're not an artist, it's entertaining, it's soothing to take in, and you get a little peek into his mind in those videos. So please do that. As for me, please do subscribe. I have more interviews and content on the way, and that's the best way to stay in the loop. See you next time. Thanks for listening.